Howdy, all of you delicious people. I'm here today to review Airheads. So, the thing that I want to start out with is this movie is fun. I enjoy it every single time I watch it. But this last time around here, I would have to go on and say that this movie is very thin. And there honestly is a number of ways to go on and finish up this movie a lot quicker than what it really is. And so the also thing about this movie is we have these three guys who are to put together a song that is to be said in this movie that's a love song, but whenever you actually hear the lyrics of this song in this movie, how is it a love song? Johnny came home on a Tuesday night. Well, Johnny can't read, Johnny can't write. You just don't understand. I don't understand how that's a love song. How is that a love song? I'm very confused how it is one. Degenerated. How is that a love song? I don't get it. So when thinking about it also, in a movie that is to be a movie about a band, you would think there'd be a number of like original songs with this band be put throughout the film. Even though they have supposedly this one song and this one song alone, you would think the whole movie would be when there's downtime, which there's plenty enough of that there would be so many songs filled with this band singing something. When really looking at it, you have movies like Queen of the Damned that the actual guy who is to supposedly be singing that movie isn't singing, but still, for this movie, there could have been an opportunity like that movie to have a number of original songs like put in that movie somewhere, whereas this movie just has the one song. And so here's also the thing. But like they also said that they only had the one song, and that at some point they're gonna like hire somebody to come up with the rest of the album for them. That's what they said in the film. That's why they only had the one song. So, but the thing that I also like is the desperation of these characters that are tired of going on and playing gig to gig to gig, probably with cover songs, because how much other music could they really have if they just have the one song? But they go on and they beat out guys like Sons of Thunder, and so if they're to go on and be as good as they are, and Sons of Thunder is to go on and be better than they are, it's like, well, like, why haven't they made it yet? But anyways, so there's just a lot of things that just don't quite add up here. And so that's like my whole like thought process of this, because you can write this movie out a lot quicker in so many ways by having the SWAT team come in, or attempt to have them come in, and you could go on and have the guys go on and sing an acoustic version or an a cappella version of the song, or there should have been a whole entire room that was to be filled of instruments that these guys could have grabbed and start doing the whole song right in front of the DJ right then and there. Could have solved that whole problem. Because I don't know how many times like there'd be radio stations that would do like acoustic sessions, or just sessions of people coming in and just playing stuff. And so I'm like, why is it that they couldn't have gone on and done that? Would have solved the whole problem of the movie right then and there. Instead of stretching this movie out to say, oh no, we have to go on and find Kayla now, and she has to go on and give us this tape. And so now there just is to be a lot of dead time where we, of course, have like Adam Sandler's character Pip uh, going on and uh, fraternizing with Susie, and all the guys going on and getting all the people in the radio station all collectively together, so that way they can do the whole hostage thing correctly. Because we have a number of these guys who are so desperate to get their one song out there that they go to a radio station and hold them at gunpoint to have them do so. And so when every mistake is to go on and happen, and everything is to lead to these guys needing to figuring out a way to try to get their song out there, by the end of the movie, we rarely ever get to hear this song, or we could not have these characters go on and just sing any song for whatever reason. I know, honestly, for me, uh, like there probably could be songs that I probably had come up with originally that I probably would remember some of the lyrics for, but not like the whole entire amount of lyrics. Because sometimes there is like quite a bit of them, and I'm just like, okay, I remember this half, but I don't remember the whole thing. Because you just kind of one off them a lot of times, and you're just like, well, wait a minute, how exactly did this song start? Because eventually when you're doing like a song, sometimes like the creative juices are just flowing at that second, and you just figure out how to write it. But then it's a one-off experience when you just pop it onto YouTube, and so on and so forth. So, but anyways, let's go on and let's just go into spoilers about this one. I kind of teed it up, even though it was very vague. Now, the grading of this movie. Here's the goofy way that I'm going to have to grade this film. I would go on and I would say I would recommend this to people who have never seen it. But clearly based on how thin this movie is, I feel like it's a bad film. But like it's like as if it's like an F plus, where like it's almost like to want to have me say that it's a passable movie, but like I would just really struggle with wanting to like give this a positive review, even though I find this movie to be fun. But I just realize I'm like, man, this movie, like, there's just so many stretches in this film that I have to go through a story with this, and I'm like, ugh. But so, and that, I feel so crushed by saying that about this film, but it's true. So, with that said, let's double fire this bad boy up. Let's just go into spoilers about this one, because it is spoiler time. Spoiler time, it's about the time we spoil this movie. And I also really enjoy like movies that have like original music in it, or are to supposedly have like the people in the movie be singing these songs, and we don't get that really here. We get just so much random music that has to be put in here to again just kind of stretch things. So anyways, let's go on. So in the beginning part of this movie, we have Chaz going on into this record company to try to pass through security to have Chaz be outed about, like, hey, this is the delivery guy again. Like, he's trying to go on and go through this record station. Somebody stop him, and nobody does. So this guy has done this plenty enough times, and you would think he would have been stopped by, oh gee golly, the time after the first to recognize this guy and be like, oh no, you're not getting in here. But no, I guess not. So Chaz is to make his way through this record company to meet with Jimmy Wing, who is to be this record executive. So Chaz goes on and is to tell Jimmy, hey, like, can you listen to my song? And the guy's like, yeah, about that, like there's a whole bunch of red tape that I have to go on to even before I can listen to your song. So I'm sorry, but I can't. So red tape meaning there's a lot of legal stuff, and like and these guys need to go on and like have their like they end up singing in the movie, but I don't remember what goofy thing that they have to kind of dance through. So Chaz is to take this guy on his word, and so now Chaz is to make his way home, where he is to mention he is to have a long day, as Kayla is to come home from her job. So Chaz is to mention that he went on to talk to Jimmy Wing, and things didn't come out the way it was to come out. And so Kayla, of course, is to be frustrated with Chaz, because it's like, well, hey, like, can't you guys just work something out? Because Kayla just wants to live the rock and roll lifestyle too, and she's just getting tired of waiting. So it finally gets to the point where, like, both of them just start to explode on one another, where we, of course, have Chaz, who's telling Kayla that, like, hey, like, you mean a lot to me, Kayla, because I wrote this song for you. And Kayla tells Chaz, it's like, well, you wrote that song before you even met me. And so when Chaz is going on and leaving this place, because Kayla is to really just throw him out here, Kayla is tossing all of his CDs and all this stuff of his. And so Chaz is to now go on and tell Rex, who is Steve Buscemi in this movie. I love Steve Buscemi. Like, I would go on and I've seen, like, Steve's, like, stand-up beyond him just going on and just doing movies. Really interesting. So Chaz is to go on to tell Rex, who lives, it almost seems like he lives, who works at a toy store. And so Chaz is to mention, hey man, like, I need to go on and just like crash at your place. Rex is like, okay, whatever you need. And so Rex is saying, like, well, like, this is great, then we can, like, practice more often. Maybe we'll probably get some more original songs out of this. So Chaz is to mention that I think the reason why these guys have failed is because they, of course, are to have gone on and had so many other things besides them practicing, that since Pip is to be this pool boy, it seems every time that they are to supposedly practice, Pip instead is to have this this pool cleaning appointment. So what does Chad expect, for them to give up their jobs to work on this career that they have. So, come to find out, Chaz makes his way to Rex's place, and Rex is to have a Stretch Armstrong and a number of different other toys. And so Chaz is to mention Rex. It's like, well, yeah, I'm sure you've gone on and have a 5-finger discount to get all these things. Basically, meaning that this guy has stolen a number of these toys. And so Rex is to go on and say that I guess there were to be these squirt guns that had gotten discontinued because they, of course, were to look too realistic. And honestly, like, for the way that they kind of approach Rex having like a kind of brief retail thing, and kind of the way they kind of talk about things, like it actually looks like, or actually seems like a real thing when they're talking. We also had Rex when he was at his store talking to his coworker, and the coworker was wanting to go on and get rid of Rex, and Rex is like, man, you know what, I'm out of here. He leaves. So the three of these guys go on to go to this bar, and so we have KPPX, who is to have their own like thing here, this whole like concert thing for Sons of Thunder. And because somehow it seems that Sons of Thunder was to be able to get their song out there to get to this radio station. So the three guys are thinking, I'm like, man, like, why can't we go on and get KPPX to like listen to our song? And because when looking at it, like, these three guys had supposedly smoked the Sons of Thunder in some gig before. So they're looking at like, well, hey, why is it that we like aren't just like them? So Chaz is like, well, like, because like we need one thing that they have. And they turn and they're like, well, like the goofy outfits that they have, and Chaz is like, no, like we need to go on and take this song to the radio station and have them listen to it, and boom, like fan base. So we of course have the three of these guys not wanting to just go on and make an appointment, go into this radio station the kind of right way. Instead, these three turn around and are to go through the back door of this radio station, as weirdly enough, we have at some point this machine that has this like number cruncher, and so Rex is turning to Pip and telling Pip, hey, like, give me your credit card, and like, what's your like pin combination, and like we'll get into the door. And so it really ends up eating the card, and so Rex ends up trying to spit soda into the machine to hope or to think that it will short the machine out to open the door, and it doesn't. So the three guys are like, crap, like, what are we gonna do now? So all of a sudden we have two of the guys be on the roof, and Pip is by the door. All of a sudden Susie is to open this door and smash Pip in the face. Pip, of course, is Adam Sandler here. So Pip falls over, and Susie is looking down at Pip. And the weird thing of it is, Susie doesn't go on and do what she was going to do regardless. She kind of backs back into the radio station, and I'm like, okay, that doesn't make sense. Shouldn't she have gone on and just done whatever she was going to do? But instead, she goes right back to the radio station. But this leads the characters to go on and take their bag and drop it right onto the door to keep it open. So they're like, okay, great. You would have thought that obviously, like, Adam Sandler's foot would have just been on the door keeping it open, because wouldn't he have been close enough? That's just my thought. So they sneak their way into this radio station to go on and find this DJ, and are going to politely ask him, like, well, hey man, can, like, you put my song out there? And the DJ's like, I don't think so, like, I don't think that's gonna work. And so it just gets more and more where the guys are to get frustrated, and so we all of a sudden have, of course, the DJ, who is Ian, who is to come back on live and is to talk to these guys about how they broke into this radio station to want their single being heard. And they're like, well, yeah, like, that's what we came here for. And so all of a sudden we have Milo Jackson, and Michael, who plays Milo here, it's like immediately, like, everybody's gonna be like, yeah, Spinal Tap. Like, it's great that he went on and did this movie because, like, of course, Spinal Tap also. But Milo plays the villain in this movie. Yeah, it's true. So Milo is to walk into this room and is to try to get these guys out of here because they don't belong, as well as Ian is going on and asking these guys this whole story. And Milo is now ticked. Ian is like, well, hey, like, I get a number of minutes for me to just go on and just kind of talk on this radio station. I'm taking my time now. So all of a sudden, the more and more Milo wants these guys to leave, Rex is to start to get more upset with Milo, to the point of him whipping out this gun, and now everybody's like, oh no, everything has changed. So we have at first that these guys make their way to find this equipment to try to play the thing that this song is to be on. And so they end up bumping into Marcus. And so I love Marcus because he's a really aggressive guy who is like, man, if you didn't have that gun, we'd throw down. And like, he really gets in the face of these guys. And I think it's hilarious. So we push on to have the guys go and get this equipment, try to play this song, and Ian looks at it and he's like, the Lone Rangers? Okay, like, how is it that you guys are to be the Lone Rangers? You pluralize something that shouldn't have been pluralized. Or pluralized? That's probably not a word. Pluraled, a word that shouldn't be pluraled. That's probably not a word either. But so, probably plural isn't a word. It's probably just something somebody made up once. So, lone. It doesn't make sense for a group to be alone. But I don't know how many times a lot of musicians would sing songs about them being alone with a group of people that are to all be doing this thing called a band along with this person. But hey, if you feel it, like, you might as well sing about it. You might be alone in the booth going on of like, yeah, I'm so alone right now. Not feeling good. So anyways, we by the time get this thing to play this song, the thing eats it. It eats it, it spits it out, and then it lights it on fire because we have an ashtray right next to it, bizarrely, for some reason. And so all of a sudden they're realizing, oh crap, the one thing that we had, like, we now, like, that's gone. You would have thought, like, crank out the guitars, find a thing that can just, find a little, like, a bongo thing, and boom, acoustic version of this song. But no. Instead, we have the guys all decide to collectively take every single hostage, put them all in one room, and have Susie sit into a chair where everyone else is to have to, like, stand onto or sit onto the ground. And then Milo makes a whole stint about, like, well, hey, if Susie's gonna sit, why can't I? And then they're like, well, because we don't like you, like, everyone else grab a chair but you. Because he complained about it. So and they're still alive. They're still on live. So Ian is to at some point talk to Chaz, and so Chaz comes up with the idea of, hey, we need to go on and we need to get this this other cassette. So we also had a moment where Pip was to go on and try to leave this radio station. And when Pip was to go on and try to leave this radio station, he was to be stopped by this police officer, who, of course, is Alan Covert, who a lot of people probably know from Grandma's Boy, or probably any number of other Waterboy, Adam Sandler-like films, because he's always in a number of them, randomly at some points. So we, of course, have Pip, who is walking, and this cop is to walk identically the same way that he's walking. And so Adam, or Pip, is to walk, and the guy is following him. And so then he walks backwards, and the cop does the same thing. And then so all of a sudden Pip just goes into this, like, robot dance. And then the cop just starts walking closer and closer to this guy. They're like, I'm not going to take this anymore. And so Pip just runs back into the radio station, and he's like, oh my god, like, if anything, I just don't want to leave here now. I don't want to leave. So they realize after what has gone on in the radio, that this thing is real and legit. So we have Doug Beach, who is to be the only one that doesn't get rounded up with the number of people. And so the whole entire time, this guy is through the ventilation shaft. And so once all the cops start to get here, the main one, of course, is to be Ernie Hudson's character, O'Malley. And then we go on and get characters like Wilson, who is Chris Farley, who seems to be fairly early on the job, but it seems that he knows the codes really well of what's really going on. So we also, at some point, have the SWAT team coming in to try and find Doug's character and talk to him, and have these certain moments where, like, Carl is to mention, like, how him and his wife are to have problems because he ended up having like some skid mark on his underwear, and you would have thought that started out World War IX and all this goofy crap that Carl ends up saying to Doug. Doug's like, I don't want to be hearing this. Like, I'm scarfing down some food right now because I'm like really tired of making my way through these ventilation shafts throughout this whole entire film. So, but I thought it was funny how like we also had Doug who mentions that he was in the Marines, but he was their accountant. And Carl is like, no, I'm not going to hold you accountable of whatever happens here. You're going to be my inside man, and so on and so forth. So we have our characters who are to make a list of demands. So the first demand is that they want to go on and have Kayla get their other cassette to get that song to be put in there. And like Chaz doesn't like that because supposedly he doesn't like the way it sounds, but it's better than nothing. So hence why you could have had an acoustic version, but it is what it is. So they make the demands of O'Malley hiring someone to find this girl out on the strip somewhere. So we have Wilson, who's again Chris Farley's character, who has to go on and find this one randomly somewhere. So we also have the three band members that concoct this plan that, like, at first they're gonna want airtime, but also they're gonna want to make all these weird goofy demands also, so that way they can justify that they can say that they had gone on and become insane, and so they're requesting all these random things that doesn't make sense, like naked pictures of B. Arthur and all kinds of random crap, and so they go on and they, I guess, get all of these things weirdly, thinking that they wouldn't, but somehow they did. So we now have the waiting game. This band is to go on and play a number of certain songs on the radio with Ian, and we also have Ian that mentions that he actually likes the more classic rock more than the current stuff, just because nobody's really saying anything lately. Man, you should probably look at a number of other like people that have gone on and just and do their stuff, where it's just kind of like it's 3 minutes of just a chorus and that's about it. But also, a lot of people probably ridicule any music that I was to go on and do originally. So that's great. It's always a thing. So we have our characters, and so we have Pip that it seems is getting closer and closer to Susie. They're having conversations together, and Ian and Chaz is looking on, just like, wait a minute, like, so, like, that guy, like, is to use the I'm so stupid that I'm cute act, and it's working. And Chaz is like, yep, that's his way, that's his thing. So Pip goes on to even seducing this woman in the office of Milo, and Milo, who at this point of the movie is to be tied up in this chair, is to find them doing it. I'm like, oh my god, you're like, don't even scuff my couch. There better not be one stain there. So because what happens is we have our characters that go on to find out that this radio station is going to be changed to be an easy listening uh, radio station called The Rain instead of being Rebel Records or Rebel Radio. So, and everyone is going to lose their jobs eventually. And so it seems that Susie had muttered that she had gone on and done all these BJs for nothing. So we have all these characters that are very upset when they hear the news because Rex is to go on and tell Ian that there seems to be a huge box of all this easy listening Kenny G stuff. And Ian looks at Milo is like, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense because Milo doesn't like to listen to music. Why does he have all that stuff? And Milo goes on to mention that he's like, well, hey, like, they're all stocking stuffers. Come to find out, Ian is to go into that office and realize that there are to be shirts and shorts made for KPBX, and there are even like pamphlets made saying like The Rain, PPBX. So Ian has to confront Milo about it, and Milo tells him the truth. It's like, yeah, like we're gonna change the whole radio station, and everyone's gonna get fired. Boo hoo. So conveniently, this is all happening at the same time. The very next day, they're supposed to change into being The Rain, whatever that means. So even more so, like we have a lot of these characters just kind of doing whatever they want because they're gonna get fired anyways. So we have Milo that goes on to get tied up into this chair because they hate him. But then Milo is to try to sneak around, and so they end up shoving him into this closet. And so Milo is to mention that like he has a fear about being buried alive, and like Rex just shoves him into this closet anyways. So we have at one point where Ian is to pull aside Chaz, and is to give Chaz this moment where he can just go on and say whatever he wants. And Chaz at first is like, well, like, we really want to be heard. And Milo's like, well, yeah, we kind of figured that. But, like, what else do you want to tell people? And so Chaz just screams rock and roll, and then they play the song. And they're like, yeah. And they're like, that's it? Like, you're just going to yell rock and roll? It's like, yeah, that's all that needed to be said. It's like, okay, sure. So, but there's a number of times where there's, like, people that call in, and, like, we have one point where, like, Beavis and Butthead are calling in. The guy that does the voices is to kind of interrupt here. And so we have people that go on and call in and all kinds of things, and so that was kind of funny. So we really push on here, and so Wilson is to go to this location, and he's supposed to be looking for a blonde woman, and every single blonde woman he, of course, sees all looks the same. So Wilson goes on into this bar or this club, and there's a mosh pit being done, and he gets chucked into it. And when he finally meets Kayla, he's like, oh, you're Kayla, right? And then he goes on to say the whole spiel about him needing her to help out her boyfriend Chaz, And she's like, well, hey, like, I'm not going to bail him out. And he's like, no, that's not what it's about. So he goes on and explains everything. Then he needs, like, the whole cassette thing. And Kayla goes on in her car and grabs this cassette that had currently been on the road, kind of urinated on by a dog, at some points crushed a little by a car. And so Kayla goes on and gets this cassette and is to make her way to this radio station to deliver this cassette. So we have at one point the power is to go out on this radio station, and Chaz runs out to O'Malley and is telling him to put the power back on. And let me pause here for a second. All right. So, kind of losing track of where exactly I was. So, Chaz, of course, is to also notice there being a knock on this door, and we have it, of course, seems to be a character called Chris Moore. He's played by Harold Ramis. And so Harold Ramis is going on and muttering here that they should go on and take advantage of this opportunity. And so this guy is like, so Chaz is like, I'm not quite sure that this guy is really be who he really is because he doesn't look familiar to me. So, because we of course had Chaz desperately asking O'Malley for a record executive and consistently spouting out Rodney King and so on and so forth. So when this guy comes to the door, they then question him to see if he's legit or not. And when they start asking him questions, he ends up getting, in their own way, questions wrong. And most of the questions were like trick questions. So they push Chris Moore out, and then he is a cop, and so he's having his badge out and having a gun, being in position for whatever's going to happen next. So when they go on and deliver the demands, and then are to go on and deliver a number of things, they end up giving up Yvonne as a exchange for that. So at some point we finally have Kayla, who makes her way here, brings the tape, and when Kayla is to come in here, we of course have both Chaz and Kayla arguing, which of course leads to the exchange from what they had in the beginning of this movie to now be different from the end of this movie, where they're saying different things, where we of course have Kayla that says like, hey, you wrote that song for me, and Chaz say it's like, well, hey, like, I wrote that song before I even met you. And they had that argument. Plus, also, while Kayla is trying to make it to Chaz, she is to be interrupted by this SWAT guy named Carl Mace, who is to out Chaz as having his real name be Chester as he looks through his yearbook photo. So, Chester is to mention that he used to play Dungeons and Dragons, and that he, of course, had a bug collection and was a nerd in school, and his real name was always Chester, but he always goes by Chaz. So, come to find out, there's a number of people that went on to spout things about themselves. Hey, I played D&D too. Hey, I played this. Hey, I played that. To go on and say that they were geeks. And kind of funny enough, the guy, one of the guys, I think, in the crowd, was to actually be Lemmy, and he had went on to do a school newspaper. So, and there are other been a guy who mentioned that he like used to just jerk it off constantly. So that's weird. So we have Kayla that goes on and is now arguing with Chaz inside the Rio station, which leads her to be so mad at Chaz that she chucks this chair and breaks Ian's setup, forcing them to realize that they can't go on and put this on the radio. It's impossible now. So we have Jimmy Wing coming in, and he is to be the real guy who's immediately wanting to sign these guys to his record label. And Milo's like, you know what? I know I've been kind of a douche or whatever, but you know what? I want to go on and finally help you guys out. So, like, I'll only take like 5%. At first it was 10, but then they break it down to 5. So he's like, I'll take 5% of what you guys earn. So, and by that time also, we have Doug, who finally ends up getting a gun from one of the SWAT members on the rooftop from this ventilation, and he ends up trying to stick up everybody because by this time, supposedly the guns aren't real and they're plastic, and they find that out by closing the door and Rex is to break a piece off of his gun, and the liquid is to spill out of it. So both Carter's character, who is played by David Arquette, and Marcus are to run out of this place, and David Arquette's characters realize what a mistake that is, and he wants to come back. So, but Doug is to whip out his gun to stop everybody, and so Ian goes on to get this gun away from Doug by smacking this thing into this ventilation thing that forces Doug to lose this gun. And when Ian is to pick it up, we immediately have Chaz that is like, well, okay, I guess this is all over. And then Ian just hands him a gun. He's like, what? So, because Ian just kind of wants to go and see where this goes. So they go on and have Jimmy come up with the idea that they're going to have more demands, as he is to want to call this massive stage to this radio station. And we also have it where when Jimmy does not go on and listen to the actual song, Jimmy is just so wanting to just go on and sign these people regardless of if they are to not have him listen to the song or not, because for him, he is to go on and say that, like, Jimmy is like, man, these guys are going to be famous. I knew something was going to explode for them. And, like, regardless of who these guys are and if they even speak English, like, it's going to, like, skyrocket off, whatever the song is. So Jimmy is to want to have Chaz signing, thinking that Chaz is to think that Jimmy was to hear the song, and they didn't. They couldn't hook the equipment up. So Chaz gets upset and wipes his butt with his contract, and Ian's like, oh my god, he wiped his butt with his contract. I love this guy. So Jimmy makes demands to get the stage here, and so we continue on to have these characters going on the stage, and it's like, hey, like, we're gonna still be holding guns on people, like, so on and so forth. So come to find out, these guys are to have to go on and perform this song, but do it as if it's a music video. And so, like, this song is going to be playing in the background, and they're going to have to, like, lip sync to it. And I'm like, dude, we don't do that. And they're like, well, you're going to do that today. So the guys at first seem like they're going to go on with it, but then, like, Chaz ends up throwing his guitar behind him, It's like, yeah, and so all of a sudden, like things start going crazy, uh, and people start thrashing in front of the stage, and so we have the band members that are like, man, these guys really like our song, and so they jump off the stage and to get carried, and they get carried to get arrested, and so the next thing we end up seeing is them going on to be doing concerts in prison. And so Ian is mentioning how these guys, I guess, are to be managed by him, and he is saying that these guys will probably get out in 6 months or maybe less with good behavior, because of course they mentioned how, like, if these guys would be these celebrities now, that uh, courts will probably go lenient on them because they're under the Jimmy Wings company's umbrella. And there's a number of lawyers that they're going to stack against this whole case and so on and so forth. So, with that said, yeah, that's kind of how this movie just rattles off in my brain. Let me know in the comments below if there's anything that I did forget about, because I'm sure there's quite a few moments that happen in this movie. Whoops. That I probably did forget. Plus, also, there was a moment where I stopped and I was like, okay, where was I? And I had to kind of remember that part. But other than that, I think I'm going to go on and try to quickly get out of here so I can go and put this out for the day. Thank you for going on and watching this video. I really do appreciate it, but I think I'm going to get my way out of here so I can go on and put this out. So goodbye, everybody. Goodbye, everybody.